Now, because this tank has had some ongoing issues, including losing fish, what I'm going to do is send away an ICP test to Triton, and then that will give me a much better understanding of what's going on within this water. So this may uncover any little secrets. So if you're ever not sure of what's going on and you ever have any mystery problems, it never hurts having a better understanding of what's going on. And it's also a very good way of fine-tuning a tank that's going good but could go better. So sending away a Triton test on a semi-regular basis is something I highly advise, because the more you test and measure and the more you understand, the more you're likely to be able to improve and succeed in this hobby. So far testing the water, the oxygen level is fine. The ammonia is 0. The nitrite has definitely come up. Tested it twice. The pH is low and the nitrate is 0. So we've definitely got nitrite in the water now. We were worried about this tank being underfed, but once I came here and saw that the fish are actually fat, I've tested the water and we're finding that the nitrite has accumulated. So it's not super high, but it's definitely present. And the pH has dropped, which is consistent with the presence of nitrite or overfeeding. So it's a little bit low. Neither of them terribly bad, but they are point worthy. Now the KH of this water is 8 and the phosphate is very high, which would also make sense considering how much algae is in there. So the temperature of this aquarium does appear to be 26 degrees. So that's a very good temperature, and the salt level is about 0.024, which for running an aquarium is a very good salt level. The surface agitation of the tank is very good. The water flow is very good. They're very outdated old lights, but that is not the reason why we may have lost fish. And there's a lot of algae, which would be a result of the high phosphate. Now it's really important that your skimmer is set properly. So this is skimming quite well at the moment, but it needs to be regularly checked, and you really want to clean out the inside of this neck. So you really want to clean out inside there a couple of times a week. So even if you just get a little brush and clean out the inside, once it's actually collected out, that's fine, but you need to make sure that this inside of this cylinder is clean. Otherwise the bacteria and fatty acids build up and it actually stops the skimmer from working altogether, because the bioculture that forms on the inside of this skimmer breaks all the nutrients down and sends them back into the tank. So this skimmer is set quite well, but it really needs to be cleaned twice a week, as with all skimmers. Then over here we've got some Royal Nature calcium carbonate and magnesium, and then there is some phosphate remover, which is great. And it's really important that you have polyfilter in the water with the phosphate remover to remove residual phosphate remover. And in this case, there is polyfilter in there. So it's just another couple of things which we need to note that are very important. Now, because this tank has a little bit of nitrite in it, and I don't really think it should, but it has potentially been overfed. It's got some old school bioballs here, most of them not being wet. And I don't like these old school bioballs because they don't contain parallel denitrifying bacteria. They're just nitrifying, so they produce nitrate, which currently isn't a problem, but they do produce it. So I will recommend putting some Marine Pure in this sump just to increase the amount of biological filtration, which hopefully will help to get the nitrite down, particularly with the presence of denitrifying bacteria. So if we get a block, I'll put that in the corner over there, then that's going to help with your presence of nitrifying and denitrifying bacteria to help break the nitrite down. So the other thing I'm going to recommend with this tank is, because feeding has potentially been an issue, initially maybe underfed and now potentially overfed, putting a auto feeder on the tank with some Spectrum probiotics, I'm going to say, is a very good idea, because the probiotics has got a probiotic bacteria in the food, which means that the bacteria, when the fish poo, the bacteria in the poo eats the poo. So we've got a dead fish here, and he is very fat. So hopefully we can solve feeding, but this is quite a humid environment here, so we'll see how the auto feeders go. But if it's in a humid environment, the auto feeders do tend to clog up, but it's probably worth having a cleaner food and having a regulated amount of food, so it's not getting fed irregularly. Once again, we're here to uncover why we've lost a fish. Now, each one of these rocks that I've removed has absolutely released a huge amount of junk, which would actually indicate overfeeding, not underfeeding. So if I lift this up, so look at that. Just a huge amount of crap just moving one rock, and that is not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. No matter how long you're in fish, getting dead fish out of tanks, especially stinky ones like that, is not fun. To inspect the body of any dead fish, and this fish is very overweight. It is very fat. It's definitely not skinny. But mind you, its body looks skinny, but its belly looks fat. So looking at that fish, I probably think it was skinny, but now it's fat. Judging by how bad the condition of the rocks were that I pulled out and how much sediment came off the rocks, I would not recommend putting new fish in this tank until the rocks have come out, the rocks have been cleaned, and the rocks have been put back again. Because when I touched these rocks, a horrendous amount of waste came off them, and so I have to assume that that means that the tank's been overfed and too much waste has gone into the tank, and there is a cost to pay for too much waste going into the tank. So once again, the fish I removed, it was super fat, and we do have nitrite in the water. So I'm going to recommend we get away from frozen foods. They're a good little treat to put in, but for now I'd rather regulate the amount of food. I'd rather put a air pump driven auto feeder to feed the fish once we get more fish. But at this stage, I'm going to recommend a bit of a mini overhaul, because the condition of these rocks is really, really bad. And now I'm just going to check how dirty the sand is. Oh, that's a lot of sediment in the sand. Yeah, I mean, it's not good. There's way too much sediment in the sand. So the tank needs another overhaul. It was overhauled just recently. Because this tank isn't looked after regularly enough due to owners being away, I think this situation would be far better in fresh water, because saltwater tank really needs love. And wow, look at that. That almost looks like a gas, because you can get hydrogen sulfide in the gravel too. So let's try digging up a bit more of it. Oh, that's horrendous. Wow, that's really bad. Look at that. That's all gas. So it's just full of hydrogen sulfide gas. Wow. Yep, it stinks. Far out. So no wonder I lost fish. I don't know where we lost fish. So with a light stir of the gravel, we're releasing all this gas. Which is potentially just too much food going in the tank. Far out. Alright, there you go. Well, there's certainly no mystery why these fish died. Built up a horrendous amount of potentially toxic gas in the sand. Now, one potential reason for that, besides just overfeeding, can also be this is an office that gets closed up on the weekend. So it's not impossible that the oxygen level, though I tested it and it's so far okay, over the weekend could be lower because the place is all closed up, meaning that less oxygen is going to be available for the sand. I really don't like how fine this sand has become, and that gets broken down too by gases being in the sand. So this has really created a toxic situation, and it really needs an overhaul. And what the reef aquariums really need is love, somebody to love them and people to notice what's going on a daily basis. And having a tank where it's only attended to monthly really should be a freshwater tank. Freshwater tanks can handle irregular servicing much better than the saltwaters can, and they're much more forgiving. I'm not freaking out and trying to do a massive water change right now, is that this tank does actually have polyfilter in the filter, and I've found polyfilter as a very efficient way of removing things like hydrogen sulfide out of the water. If there was no polyfilter, I'd be freaking out trying to get it in, although there's no fish to lose now anyway.